Hey everybody, welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs and baseball podcast hosted by two comedians who love the Cubs but do not live in Chicago. I am one of them. I am Adam Amawala.
And I'm the other. I'm Kevin McCaffrey, and you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Away Games Pod. And maybe new people are, because Adam, you tweeted from there and blew it up pretty good this week, I would say.
I did. You know, Aubrey Huff has been living rent-free in my mind for quite some time now, and I wanted to give him his due credit.
Yeah. I feel like Aubrey Huff might have to live rent-free somewhere, because he seems like a guy who has not handled his money well. It seems like things are not going well in his life and haven't been for a while. So, rent-free might be a necessity for that guy.
Yeah. For anybody listening, Aubrey Huff is he's almost an impossibly bad person, it seems.
He is, and it's like, this will be the last time we talk about him. He popped up trending in the news. He was you would call him a journeyman player. He had a couple of good offensive seasons and was on two of the Giants teams that won the World Series. He hit 111 for one of them, so he really was, you could say, the straw that stirred the drink and then spilled it, but someone else cleaned it up and then kept the drink going. But he's a racist and a bigot and just sort of a garden variety idiot. You can, no matter what issue comes up, you know what his take is going to be on it. It's the bad, hateful one. And he was trending for some reason this week, and Adam tweeted at him, and Adam and I shared this Twitter account, so it's always a mystery which one of us is doing this. But yeah, Adam, you tweeted. What was the tweet that blew up yesterday?
Well, by the way, I think at some point we should do a little game on our Twitter and find like our 10 most viral tweets and just make people guess who tweeted them. Because sometimes it's who tweeted, but sometimes I feel like sometimes it's clear whose voice it is, and other times it could really go either way. Basically, I realized that Aubrey Huff is on Cameo, which, if you haven't heard of Cameo, it is a place typically dwelled by like B and C-list celebrities, where they're like, hey, I'm not really... It's a place where like the Tiger King cast would thrive. Of like, hey, we're really popular for this brief moment in time. Here, can you pay me $60 and I'll wish your uncle happy birthday? So Aubrey Huff is on Cameo, and he charges $75, which is at least $75 too much.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. I mean,
I'll tell you, because there's some good people on Cameo. You can get fun stuff from there. I got Pat Hughes to record a message. He's not $75, or he wasn't, at least when I checked. Pat Hughes was a cheaper buy. So go on Cameo and get Pat Hughes to say something. Pay money for him. But yeah, anyway, Aubrey Huff was a $75 purchase on Cameo, and Adam saw that.
Yeah, it wasn't that complicated of a tweet, but I just tweeted, you guys, I took like a screenshot of his Cameo, and I said, you guys think it's worth $75 to ask Aubrey Huff to say Black Lives Matter? And it very quickly kind of blew up and was getting a lot of people saying, yes, it's worth it. A lot of people saying, no, don't give money to that horrific person. And then a fellow comic that Kevin and I know, Sarah Tiana, who is a great comic and is also kind of known for her roast joke writing ability. I think
and a big sports fan too.
Yeah, big sports fan. I think she's a writer for Lights Out with David Spade as well. But she responded to us and DM'd us and was like, "Oh, I will give you the $75." And then instead we came up with I don't know if the campaign really took off, but the idea was, let's roast Aubrey Huff and or donate to Black Lives Matter in his name. So she made a donation in his name. There's actually like a place to to put who you're making a donation for. And then I wrote a few roast jokes. I'll share them with you all on the pod in case you don't follow us on Twitter, which you should. These are my roast jokes. And Kevin, I think you had one or two as well, if you want to throw them in. These were mine. I'm pretty proud of them. Kevin and I have both done roasts in real life and agree that they are largely horrible. But it is a fun exercise for writing jokes.
I hate them. And actually, I'm in televised roasts. I'm 2-1. I won twice and I lost once. And the only time I lost was to Sarah Tiana on Comedy Knockout. And then
she is very good.
2 times I was on. But yeah,
these were my Aubrey Huff roast jokes. Amazing that Aubrey Huff won't wear a mask considering the stupid shit coming out of his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I think simple but good. This might be my favorite. Aubrey Huff looks like if a pair of Oakleys were a person.
Yeah, he's the embodiment of just like any of the random avatar that screams at you, and in the profile has MAGA Christian father. Like basically in the
Some Bible
bio.
verse. Yeah,
Yes.
and even though you can only see the face with the sunglasses, there's cargo shorts involved.
Absolutely.
Then we had Aubrey Huff looks like the kind of guy who would call a man gay for being named Aubrey.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which I fully agree with. And it's a simple one, but Aubrey Huff is a former Giant and a current Giant asshole, which is just a fact.
It's good economy of words. I wrote, according to the Bay Area women we've heard from in our DMs, Aubrey Huff is an 80 grade tool with a 20 grade tool. And that's inside baseball lingo for you. And that actually is true, because we had a nice young lady slide into our DMs and be like, if you want to ask Aubrey to say Black Lives Matter, here's his phone number, which he gave me when he was married and hitting on me.
We chose not to use it because with great white power comes great white responsibility.
Yes. It's I did a quick look at Huff's Wikipedia page. I didn't really get a chance to write much else about it, but I did enjoy that it was noted his last act in baseball was that the Giants paid $2 million to make him go away. They paid $2 million to release him, which is actually a pretty great use of money.
That's actually that's a pretty good deal to get someone that awful to leave.
Yeah, $2 million. No, you'll do that. You'll take that for no Huff all the time.
And I think he's also been he's been disinvited from their reunions and stuff because of how awful he is.
Yes, from the Giants championship reunions, and strangely, usually even with controversial dudes, you'll see their teammates be like, he was part of what we did, whatever. Obviously we don't agree with everything he says, whatever. But no one seemed upset about Huff not being invited. No one cared. It seemed pretty unanimous. Yeah. And of course, he was arguing with Trevor Bauer, who also can be a bit of a dip. But I'm like, all right, I guess I'm entirely Team Bauer in this Twitter feud. And if you weren't sure about taking Bauer's side, Kurt Schilling joined the chat on the side of Aubrey Huff. So it's just like the worst shit in the world, human-wise, in the baseball world on one side. And then Trevor Bauer, of all things, on the side of good in this argument was very, very strange. But.
Well, it's like remember in NBA Jam how you'd only have the two players from the team and you'd see their little cartoon photos. I feel like Schilling and Huff in an MLB Jam are that has to be the top two worst people out of baseball.
Yeah, it's off the top of my head, I think so. Felipe Vasquez.
Oh Jesus! Yeah. If Luke Heimlich had been drafted,
yes, we maybe we'll put together an all piece of shit team and publish it and go make our picks and go make a full roster with it sometime soon. But yeah, so follow us on Twitter, and if you want to donate to Black Lives Matter stuff, post your roast joke, we'll retweet you.
Yes, the hashtag was Raise a Roast, and I would be remiss if I didn't share Sarah Tiana's tweet because it was pretty great.
Yeah.
Aubrey is a racist alcoholic, so he loves the Confederate flag but hates that it only has 2 bars. That's great.
It's really good. That is a really good joke. Yes. So follow us at Away Games Pod, and if you would like to make any donations, post a donation of any amount. Doesn't have to be what we were throwing down there. Donate somewhere cool, and we'll give that roast joke a retweet.
Absolutely.
But yeah, baseball's back, Adam. It's coming back.
Yeah, I was going to say before we started recording, I was commenting on Kevin is currently wearing a spring training 2020 shirt, which almost seems ironic. I know that you bought it in Arizona during actual, brief spring training, but it's one of those things where visually seeing it almost looks like a joke shirt.
Yeah, because it feels like it never happened. Spring training. It's almost like the like world champion 2015 world champion Cubs from Back to the Future 2, you know,
Right.
like an alternate history or future shirt. But yeah, no, it was a real legit spring training shirt. My brothers and I were there for the first couple of games before everything got shut down. And now I guess spring training 2020 part 2 is going to be just in Chicago. Probably. It seems like every team is just going to be, you know, at their home location for their own spring training, right?
Yeah, it sounds that way. And I mean, good Lord, there's so much to discuss with this, and there's so much about it that seems, I guess, fraught,
Mm-hmm.
to say the least. Like, I want to be optimistic that it's going to happen, but I don't know how you feel, but to me, it just feels like there's so much that could go wrong here.
It's hard to believe it's just going to go through without getting derailed, you know? And we could have, if they had come to an agreement earlier, a little early. I mean, baseball couldn't have started until this month, you know, but there's really no excuse for them to have not gotten to an agreement until this late. But yeah, I think we'd all like to see the 60 games that they can theoretically fit in and see a playoff and a champion. But it feels like there's just such a good chance we're going to get to the end of spring training 2 and everything's going to have to shut down again, you know?
Yeah, and it's like I understand the money that's involved here. I understand that punting on the whole season is probably not something that they think of as a viable option. But like emotionally, for the players and for us as fans, like how much more demoralizing will it be if they get through a regular season without a hitch and then the playoffs get shut down?
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, because you're expanding the playoffs to add more money, to get more teams involved. But also, if that makes the playoffs go longer, it's like you're really trying to sneak a season in under the wire here, you know.
But I actually don't think for this what they agreed on, they're not expanding the playoffs, so it is still 5 teams.
Oh, okay, cool. I missed that then. So okay, I missed that. That's a good detail. So it's still just 5 teams per league.
Correct. Yeah. So basically, and I mean, we can share all the information, but the gist of it is that it's 60 games. All the games are against your own area, basically. So it's 40 games within your division. So the Cubs would play each of the other 4 Central teams, NL Central teams, 10 times each.
10 times. Yeah.
Correct. And then they will play the White Sox, Tigers, Twins, and Royals. Is that all the teams? There's one other team that I'm forgetting.
In Cleveland?
Cleveland, yeah. They'll play each of those teams 4 times.
Okay.
But then it's the same playoffs because they were not able to come to the agreement that would have kind of switched things around for this season and next season. So, so there's still 5 teams in each league, but that also means like if you get off to a slow start, it's almost like a football season where like if you go 0-2, you're in trouble right out of the gate. Like I think it was 2018 that the Cubs came out of the gate and were like 1-6 or whatever. If you start out that way in a 60-game season, that's a tenth of your season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one thing that's interesting about this schedule is, I mean, it really, as far as your chances of making a wild card, are really affected by luck here because depending on whether you play in a particularly good or bad division, you know, I mean, it's on the one hand, the NL Central is good. You know, we expect the Reds to be significantly better. Really, you only expect the Pirates to be bad out of the NL Central. But the AL Central is not good. Yeah. So this might actually, there might be a better chance for 2 wild cards out of the NL Central when you think you might have a chance to beat up on the Tigers, beat up on the Royals a little bit. The White Sox are coming, but they're not expected to be dominant yet. The Indians have lost pieces. And the Twins were great last year, but it's also kind of came up out of nowhere. So I think if you have to kind of like the NL Central's chances for getting a second wild card out of this, if you're just like, you know, handicapping it based on schedule.
Right. But, you know, it also, I have no idea. We're going to have to talk to our buddies at Thrive Fantasy. Betting is going to be very interesting because, you know, think about it. Every season, there's a team who starts out hot, and you know that they're going to come back down to earth at some point. Like the Pirates last year, I think I saw somebody, Sahadev may have made the point that like 60 games into last season, or even at the All-Star break last season, the Pirates were like half a game out of first, and then ended up being 22 games out of first at the end of the season. But in 60 games, a small sample size, somebody comes out of the gate hot and just rides a good wave for a couple months. We could. I don't think we're going to see a Pirates-Orioles World Series, but weird things could happen.
Yeah, and I think I saw basically I think this might have been if the playoffs were expanded as they were proposed to, but if the playoffs had been expanded the way they talked about for a little while with this agreement last year, and if the season was the same number of games, like the Rockies would have made the playoffs.
Right.
So you can get off to a weird sprint here, and that'll make it interesting. And it's weird because if we get a World Series champion this year, it's going to feel asterisked. It's going to be weird. It's going to feel like it counts for like most of a World Series champion. If the Cubs win, of course, it's entirely legitimate and equal to everything else.
Yeah,
but it's going to be very strange, to see. Yeah, to see if we do get a champion out of this. Also, it's universal DH that was agreed on for this year, right?
Yes. So that designated hitter will be used in all games. And here's a couple other interesting wrinkles. There will be 30-man rosters for the first 2 weeks, then 28 for the following 2 weeks, and then 26 for the remainder of the season. Which obviously 26 was the number that it was going to be.
Right.
This year. And then there's also a taxi squad. So there's a 40-man roster and then 20 quote-unquote taxi squad players. And evidently, since there's no minor leagues, teams can bring 3 taxi squad players to away games. A great podcast, mind you.
Great podcast, yeah.
But one of those must be a catcher. One of those 3.
Okay, interesting.
The 3-batter minimum, still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a trade deadline, and it'll be August 31st.
Mm-hmm.
Couple other random things. Oh, extra innings you've heard about, obviously.
Yes, we're doing the runner on second thing.
Just for 2020, though, and just for the regular season.
Yeah.
Well, I would rather just end in ties after 10 innings.
Same. Yeah, of all the rule changes that have been proposed to me, that's the most arbitrary and stupid. So it's with this year, it's kind of like whatever gets the season off the ground.
Right.
Cool. I don't give a shit as much, but it seemed I don't want that rule full time. It's insane. Yeah. It's just incredibly arbitrary. Why not just load the bases to begin the extra innings? Like, honestly, give it because that puts more runners on. That's a greater chance for more score separation if the whole thing is trying to just end the game early.
And the whole way that it works is that it's whoever was the last out in the previous inning. And so I saw somebody tweet the other day. It's like, so theoretically, if Billy Hamilton is up with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th with nobody on, do you just tell him to strike out? Because there's going to be a better chance of having him start out on second in the bottom of the 10th?
Right. That's interesting. A pinch hit situation where you send a guy up there to get out.
Right.
The inning. Yeah, that would be weird strategy.
Don't swing, Terrence Gore.
Terrence Gore never swing. Never swing. Oh, God. Yeah.
Sorry to bring up the PTSD involved.
Yeah, no, that's rough.
How about this? This is fun. Would you like to hear a very quick auctioneer-style rundown of the health and safety protocol for players?
Yes, give it to me.
Okay. Let me know if this sounds like a baseball season to you. Players, coaches, and support staff will be tested for COVID-19 every other day during spring training, the regular season, and postseason. Players will receive temperature and symptom checks twice a day. Antibody testing will be conducted once per month. Seems low. Social distancing will be encouraged as much as possible, both on the field and off. Players and other team personnel not participating in the game will be sitting in the stands at least 6 feet apart. Non-playing personnel must wear masks in the dugout and bullpen at all times. No pregame exchange of lineup cards. No celebratory contact, high fives, fist bumps, hugs, etc. No spitting or chewing of tobacco and or sunflower seeds. Chewing gum is allowed, but you got to swallow it. I made that part up. A ball will be thrown out once it has been touched by multiple players, and fights are strictly prohibited I'm gonna throw in the Ron Burgundy rule, even though it's not
Yes.
listed. No touching of the hair or face.
Yes, I mean, I think that is part of the regulations. And I saw you also posted a good extra bit of strategy based on this with the fights being prohibited. So I think you posted at the Away Games Twitter that you can. So you're telling me everyone can drill the Astros and they can't do anything about it.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, fighting's always strictly prohibited.
Right.
It's not that, like, nowhere in the rules is it like you can fight sometimes. So
it's almost like saying fighting is prohibited and making that a statement. It's almost like when they make the announcement on like public transportation that it's like assaulting a bus officer is also just regular assault. It's like, yeah, I know that there's still laws on a bus.
Yeah, I know that's a human being. You're not allowed. There's no like, well, he's a bus driver. You can hit him. It's fine. They don't have feelings. Yeah, that's not a thing. Yeah, and guys are gonna spit. Guys are also gonna high five. By the way, because we've seen in the Premier League, that was also one of the rules. Like, you can't hug and like jump on each other when you celebrate a goal, and they just do. Like, it just they still do.
How's Anthony Rizzo expected to not talk to people at first base? That's his thing.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to do that. They really should have like 6 foot long sticks that they get to bring with them and just like keep. Oh man, it's like basically pickoff plays are almost outlawed. You know, it's like you can't. The guy's standing too close.
Yeah, it's very weird. Well, and there's just natural contact that happens. I mean, like if you're Javi Baez and you're doing one of your fancy tags at second base, like you're not going to tag someone from 6 feet apart. So
right. Yes. Second base brought to you by Purell once again. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting to have a season theoretically about to happen, I guess. You know.
Yeah, and I think to your point earlier, if we're lucky enough to actually have a full season and have a World Series, I think the fans of whichever team that is are going to feel it's legitimate, and everybody else is going to be like, yeah, well, you know.
Yeah, for sure. But I think we both feel the same, where it's just like, you know, might as well. Let's see if we can do it. And obviously it might get shut down if guys are testing positive and stuff anyway. But, you know, we'll do what we can.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to be such a downer. I kind of don't see a scenario where this works out the way they want it to.
Well, and Charlie Blackmon just tested positive, and a few other Rockies did. The Phillies had a little breakout. The Blue Jays already did. So it's just like, there's a good chance this just doesn't happen. But for today, you know, it's theoretically moving ahead, which is a place we should have been a long time ago. But, you know, well, we'll see what happens.
I mean, obviously the worst case scenario would have been, even unrelated to COVID, like them just not being able to come to any agreement and just saying, like, shut it down until, because even if that would have been the responsible thing to do health-wise, they already looked so bad. I mean, I think you and I are both firmly on the side of the players, but the bottom line is public arguments amongst millionaires and billionaires during a global pandemic and a time of great civil unrest is just objectively a bad look.
Yes, it's a bad look, and it was bad. And them figuring it out now doesn't fix that. They were that tone deaf and blind, but you know, at least we got, you know, at least we're here now.
So I'm just seeing a tweet here that our friend Andy Cruz Vandesek retweeted from a fellow whose name is John Becker at John Becker _, and he pointed out a particular part of the MLB document that is part of the reason that I'm kind of concerned about how this is all going to play out. His tweet goes, "This might be the worst part of the MLB document. Nothing is formally restricted, so players, many of whom probably think they're invincible, are just asked to, quote-unquote, take care and act responsibly. Seems like a lot of undue trust being shown here." And the actual excerpt from the document from Major League Baseball is Section 2.6, Conduct Outside of Club Facilities. In order for a 2020 season to be conducted safely, covered individuals must exercise care while away from club facilities to avoid situations in which the risk of contracting the virus is elevated, such as participating in activities involving large groups or indoor activities in which people are in close proximity to one another, for example, crowded restaurants, bars, clubs. MLB will not formally restrict the activities of covered individuals when they are away from club facilities, but will expect the covered individuals on each club to ensure that they all act responsibly. The careless actions of a single individual places the entire team and their families at risk, and the covered individuals on each club should agree on their own off-field code of conduct for themselves and blah, 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 blah. But point being, like, it's kind of on... I mean, frankly, it's kind of a microcosm of what's happening in the country, which is like, oh, let's just assume that people will do the right thing. But I think we're realizing that there are a lot of people who don't necessarily do that.
Yeah. I mean, the number of players you have totally in the league is going to include a high number of, even if it's not a high number, a dangerously significant number of people who are just like, this shit's a hoax, you know, right. Or who are just like this, you know, who want to be a careless dumbass because freedom, you know, and it really one player acting like that, and you don't even have to act like that. You can still do all the right things and still catch this thing and spread it. And it seems borderline impossible since the major, especially since MLB is not doing anything like the NBA is with the bubble. Borderline impossible that someone's not going to spread it around in each locker room just based on their own, you know, their own behavior on their own time. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to think that, you know, it's not even, I don't even think it's necessarily players thinking that it's all a hoax, but it's in the same way that a guy who's a 20-year-old millionaire will sometimes drive a Ferrari 120 miles an hour and think that nothing's going to happen. I think people will probably proceed in the same way now, which is like, yeah, I'm young and I'm, you know, nothing bad could happen to me because why would it happen to me? And sometimes it does. And I guess my hope is that, you know, if the season has to shut down because numbers are spiking in various cities and it's just in general not healthy, then it is what it is. And I don't think anybody will be upset that they gave it a try.
Right.
In a worst case scenario, if this causes a player to get like gravely ill or die, God forbid, or their family members, I guess in looking at a broad view of all sports coming back, if that happens with any athlete in any sport, I think everything just stops.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, you hope it doesn't, but also there's a pretty good chance that something like that does happen. And it's not just the athletes, it's their families and the people that they're coming into contact with just in their day-to-day life too. And they're apparently also part of the agreement is originally it was talked about that players would have the option to opt out. But apparently that's only for players who are deemed high risk are opt out and still receive salary and service time, basically.
But that has actually changed, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay,
yeah,
good. Because I saw that this morning. I thought.
I think I'm trying to find where it is exactly, but basically, they changed it from just being players who are at high risk to if they have family members who are high risk, they are also like able to leave and not. Here it is. Sorry. MLB agrees to union's proposal in health/safety protocol that all players who cohabitate with a high-risk individual, including a pregnant spouse, has the right to opt out and be paid with service time. Previously, it was only high-risk players who could opt out and still be paid.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, that's at least better. So, yeah. Still an extremely imperfect situation, and it's, as we say, it's sort of hard to imagine this goes off without a hitch from here, and we get to the end and have World Series champion. But it's fun to dream on for the moment, at least.
Right. And I do have to say, selfishly, obviously there are much more important things happening, but this was a year that I was particularly looking forward to in terms of the way the schedule played out. Like, between us going to London, I was going to do a trip to Toronto because I've never been to that stadium. Cubs were going to be at Yankee Stadium this summer.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if there is, hopefully we have a vaccine by next April and baseball will be able to kind of resume what it was before. I'll be interested to see if they proceed with that schedule again and just push everything back. Same with like the All-Star game, I'm sure, because it was supposed to be in LA this year, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure they get it next
I think
year.
So. You would think you should just map what this year's schedule was onto next year and hope that you can do 162 next year.
Yeah.
But the good news also selfishly for us who do a baseball podcast and have been doing it every week throughout all of this, that we might next week, we might get to talk about the roster and players and who you think is going to be on the original 30-man starting thing, who the taxi squad players are. So it'll be nice to at least selfishly get to talk about baseball things on a baseball podcast as opposed to fucking labor strife and stuff.
Totally. Even talking about the idea of baseball is nice. And obviously you and I have been able to benefit from this downtime in terms of interviewing players, and certainly I think that our chances of interviewing current players will decrease, but we'll still do our best if we can to get some of these former guys on. Not Aubrey Huff.
Yeah,
he's banned. But,
yes, but former players and some minor leaguers too, since unfortunately there won't really be a minor league this year. We'll still have fun stuff.
So,
but
that's all I got. You got anything else?
That's it. Just follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Away Games Pod. Check us out there and go listen to some of the interviews we did if you haven't yet. If you're a new listener, if you just got on, I recommend Rob Strisny is a great one to start with. I believe episode 117. Taylor Davis was a lot of fun. They're all fun. So go, and they're kind of evergreen. So you can go listen to those, and they're not timely or anything. But yeah, thanks for listening, and hopefully we have a real baseball to talk about.
Hell yeah.